Everyone knows the story of the 300 Spartans, the doomed last stand at a narrow pass. But the real genius behind Thermopylae had almost nothing to do with Sparta. The entire battle was one half of a larger gambit designed by an Athenian politician named Themistocles, a man who realized that the way to beat the largest invasion force the ancient world had ever seen was to ignore the army entirely and go after the fleet. Half a world away, the Chinese strategist Sun Tzu was writing down the same principle: attack the enemy's weakness, not their strength. Themistocles never read Sun Tzu, but he thought exactly the same way. Themistocles started by mapping the enemy's strengths and weaknesses. On land, the Persian army was devastating. Massive cavalry forces, mounted archers who could fire at a full gallop, a lethal combination Greek infantry had no answer for. In open terrain, Persian horsemen circled Greek hoplite formations, pouring arrows from every direction, never closing to melee range where Greek spears had the advantage. In the open, the Greeks lose every time. The Persian army was not the target. The Persian fleet was another story. Enormous in numbers, over 1,000 warships, but riddled with structural weaknesses. The Persians had no seafaring tradition. Xerxes appointed 6 admirals, all family members, nepotism, not competence. Some weren't even present with the fleet. They traveled with Xerxes on land, feasting in his pavilion. The Phoenician corps were great explorers. They'd circumnavigated Africa, but their combat record was unimpressive. The rest was a patchwork. Egyptian, Cypriot, Cilician, and Ionian Greek contingents with no unified command. The Ionian Greeks, Greek city-states on the coast of modern Turkey forced to serve Xerxes, fought with deeply mixed loyalties. This was the weak point. Before Themistocles' strategy won out, most Peloponnesian states favored a different plan: abandon everything north of the Isthmus of Corinth, the narrow land bridge connecting the Peloponnese to mainland Greece, retreat behind a wall, and let Xerxes have the rest, and they'd already begun construction. The fatal flaw: if Xerxes controlled the sea, he could land troops anywhere on the Peloponnesian coastline behind the wall. A defensive line is useless when the enemy can bypass it entirely by water. Unless the Greek fleet stopped the Persian navy first, no war would save them. Themistocles found his answer in the geography of central Greece. Due west of the island of Euboea, the mountains come down to the sea, squeezing the coastal road into a pass barely wide enough for 2 carts abreast. Thermopylae, the hot gates. Between Euboea and the mainland, a narrow channel forces any fleet heading south into confined waters. The strait at Artemisium. These 2 positions sat roughly 40 miles apart. At Thermopylae, Xerxes alleged 1.7 million men funnel through perhaps 10 abreast. At Artemisium, 1,000 warships crowd into waters where they can't maneuver. Both positions transform the Persians' greatest asset, sheer mass, into a liability, and they were interdependent. The fleet at Artemisium blocked the Persian navy from sailing around Thermopylae and landing troops behind the Greek army. The army at Thermopylae prevented the Persians from marching overland and attacking the Greek fleet from shore. Remove either position and the other collapses. This was one coordinated strategy, each half protecting the other. But the choke point strategy was only the surface. Beneath it lay an even more audacious calculation. Themistocles didn't need to defeat the Persian fleet. He needed to stall it. The invasion arrived in late summer. If the Greek positions at Thermopylae and Artemisium could hold for 4 to 6 weeks, autumn storms would arrive. The Aegean becomes unnavigable. The Persian fleet would be forced to withdraw or be destroyed by weather. Without the fleet, the army loses its supply line. An army of hundreds of thousands stranded in Greece without food, without reinforcement. The invasion collapses under its own weight. This reframes everything. Thermopylae was not a heroic sacrifice. It was a calculated delaying action with a concrete strategic payoff. Buy time, let the weather do the killing. Themistocles operated on two levels simultaneously. Military strategy was one, political strategy was the other. Athens in 480 BC was a second-ranked city. By making the fleet the centerpiece of Greek defense, and Athens the provider of that fleet, Themistocles positioned Athens for post-war leadership. He grasped something profound about crisis. It carries the potential for catastrophic loss, but also for gains far exceeding anything achievable in peacetime. Save Greece, and Athens becomes the indispensable power, the city that built the ships, supplied the strategy, and held the line when others wanted to hide behind the wall. The war wasn't just about survival. For Themistocles, it was about transformation. Now the famous myth, right? 300 Spartans, and the entire defending force at Thermopylae, except they weren't. 300 Spartiates, the full citizen warrior elite of Sparta, did march to the hot gates, but they were the core of a 71,400-strong force. 4,000 troops from the Peloponnese, 3,000 from central Greece. This was not a suicide mission. It was a force considered sufficient to hold a pass where the terrain did the work. Leonidas was chosen to hold until the main Spartan army could be mobilized, delayed by the Olympic religious festival, and marched north. One more detail. Sparta insisted on a Spartan, Eurybiades, commanding the combined Greek fleet, even though it was Themistocles' strategy and Athens supplied the most ships. Spartan pride demanded the appearance of leadership. Athens provided the substance. Step back from the details, and the shape of Themistocles' thinking becomes clear. 4 principles drove his strategy. Principles that military thinkers still study 25 centuries later. First, choose the terrain. Never let the enemy pick the battlefield. Thermopylae and Artemisium were not accidents of geography, and they were deliberately selected to negate Persian advantages. Second, attack weakness, not strength. The Persian army was nearly invincible. The Persian fleet was fragile. Divided command, reluctant allies, no tradition. Themistocles targeted the fleet. Third, use time as a weapon. Stalling can be as decisive as winning. Hold the line for 6 weeks, and autumn storms destroy what Greek triremes could not. Fourth, turn numbers into a liability. In open water, 1,000 ships overwhelm 200. In a narrow channel, 1,000 ships crush each other. The story we remember, 300 Spartans dying heroically at a narrow pass, is powerful, but it's a fragment. The real story is an Athenian who saw the whole board, identified the one point where the greatest empire on earth was vulnerable, and designed a strategy so precise that military academies still teach it. Thermopylae was not a last stand, it was a chess move. Whether Themistocles' plan worked, what happened when the Persian fleet arrived at Artemisium and Xerxes' army reached the hot gates, is the next chapter. The strategy was set, the geography was chosen, the trap was laid. The question now was whether the Persians would walk into it, and whether the Greeks could hold long enough for the weather to finish the job.